7 o'clock.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call of the board members, please.
Augustinelli,
Here.
Robertson,
Here.
Klein,
Here.
Yulee,
Here.
Racine,
Here.
Fudge,
Here.
DeGood.
Here. Thank you for that. Well, we have two members of the public here. Either of you would like to step up to the podium and make any sort of public comment? All right, we'll move on to review and approval of the agenda and statement of any conflicts of interest. Anyone like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda as is. Support.
We have a motion by Klein with support by Robertson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the same? The motion passes. And we'll move on to review of the minutes from our October 8th meeting. And Bob, I believe you found something already.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make sure that we update the roll call commission members. I was here twice, but you forgot to show up.
Well, maybe we'll tweak that then. Any other thoughts on the minutes?
Just
You
one.
were there, right?
I was there.
Yeah, he ran the
Somehow we
meeting.
put Bob's name twice and not your name.
Yeah, in fact.
Bob
at the
was
beginning,
actually
He called the
messing-
meeting to order in the first line.
He was messing around with me saying, "Oh, sorry I didn't see it the last meeting," and I was scratching my head. I was like, "I thought I was here." Go ahead, John.
The only thing I spotted toward the bottom of paragraph 2, it's not substantive, but just the terminology when there was some discussion about possible conflicts, and we all said, no, there's no conflict. I don't think we'd say commissioners declined both conflicts, but other commissioners felt neither would be conflicts or something like that. But
I would say something, yeah, just commissioners felt neither were conflicts.
yeah,
It's-
whatever that'd be better, I think.
Yep.
Anything else? Anybody like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion when we adopt the minutes as presented, or accept the minutes as presented.
As amended.
As amended, and I'll support it.
All right, we have a motion by Augustinelli, support by Fudge. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same. The motion passes. And from there, we move on to correspondence.
This is just information for you. I just wanted to get it in your hands, so I thought the best way was just to have it in the packet. This is the results of the ABD engineering review of the acoustical impact assessment prepared by Robert Anderson Group for the High Tops site plan. So there's no action. I just wanted to get it into your hands. There are some of the comments I thought were fairly technical, so I do have a meeting set up to meet with ABD on Monday to discuss, kind of maybe present things in a little bit more layman's terms. But I anticipate that we'll put this on the agenda for the November 12th regular Planning Commission meeting.
Okay, very good. Anybody have any questions? All right. No more correspondence?
That's it.
Okay, we'll move on to reports. Anything from the Township Board, Molly?
Two things. We're having discussions with the new buyers on Bridges 45. It is for sale. They would like to do a pilot there, but for workforce housing. We've done quite a bit of low-income housing, but workforce can go up to 120% of the median income. So the board's asked for a few more details on that because our tax, it is payment in lieu of taxes, so the tax goes down. Is it worth it to save whatever they're going to save? So that's kind of what we're discussing on that. And then moving forward on the deal with the city for the water to the Commons in Long Lake Township, and soon to be meeting with Eagle, the city, and the townships. And hopefully they can get it resolved. That's it.
Okay. Anything from the planning commissioners, zoning board of appeals, Bob?
No meeting, thank you.
And we did not have a Parks and Recreation meeting since our last planning commission meeting. Anything from the joint planning commission?
I'm sure you're all waiting with bated breath to hear from the Joint Planning Commission. Yes, we actually met a couple of weeks ago or a week ago, and it looks like we're going to be embarking on a revision of the master plan, an update of the master plan that has been adopted, and I think it's been working well, but it's 16 years old, and so it needs to be modernized. And there's also some activity, the people that run the community garden are looking to replace a shed for the garden, which should be kind of a no-brainer, but we're struggling to figure out exactly how to allow something that we all think is okay without running into language problems with some other parts of the so-called district plan, which is the zoning ordinance for the commons. So staff is, so they're charged with coming up with some language that will help us accomplish a fairly simple mission, I think. And I think we're gonna have a special meeting, aren't we, next month to talk about that?
That's correct. The Planning Commission is having a special meeting on Wednesday, November 19th at 5:15 PM. It's going to be held in this room here to add that for the consideration of some draft language regarding the development regulations for that area at the Commons.
Well, I look forward to another report from you then.
Just control yourself.
Okay.
I know this is exciting stuff.
All right, we will move on to staff report.
So actually, today was a busy day for us in terms of meetings. We just concluded right before this the Airport Gateway public input session, which we'll speak later on the agenda. But we had two other meetings today. Earlier, we met with a Logan's Landing stakeholder group. So we had representation from the Grand Traverse County Road Commission, Grand Traverse County, Deputy Administrator was there, Parks Director from Grand Traverse County, Watershed Center, TART Director was there, as well as Conservation Resource Alliance, and as well as us and the Township Manager to talk about Logan's Landing area. As you know, there's been some changeover in the ownership of what historically is Logan's Landing, kind of the east and west side of the river. And we just know that if there is any redevelopment at that location, as well as potentially anywhere else in that vicinity, there are some issues that need to be addressed. Some of that area is in floodplain. Certainly we have parks in that area. A big issue for the Road Commission is the crossing of the river. And to address the culverts that are currently in place, they're desiring to actually construct a bridge. If a bridge were to be constructed there, what would be that interface? How would that change between the adjacent properties and South Airport Road? Talking about what was originally potentially the original course of the river, how it's kind of divided there. A lot of good ideas. We thought this would be maybe a starting point to look, having this discussion and maybe figuring out what to do there would lead into developing the corridor plan. Based on this conversation, I think there's a lot of issues going on there that really need to be addressed, particularly if we're going to maintain that critical crossing of the river and to figure out how the land use is in that area in relationship to that. So it was very good discussion, and I think at this point, internally, like as mentioned, Chris Barchef was there, Township Manager, Planning Department, will kind of figure out maybe some next steps. I think we'll be keeping the stakeholders that were there informed and maybe seeing what's the best route going forward with this, particularly if we have redevelopment interest of that area. It's got a lot of challenges, and we want to make sure that it's done appropriately, and some of those changes could take time. The road commission would like to see a bridge there, but they're not in a position to construct anything at this time. And so we're just trying to figure out what is kind of the best approach long-term for that particular area. Our master plan looks at it as a mixed-use area, so we can, look at it differently. There is a lot of general commercial in that area, so, but we have restrictions such as setbacks from the river and so forth. So it's got a lot of challenges to it, and just trying to figure that all out. You want to report on the meeting?
Yeah, I could do the other meeting we had was the Grand Traverse Safe Streets Alliance. Is sort of a group of representatives from several different local organizations: TART, Norte, Cherry Capital Cycling Club, Track Club, other kind of folks in the advocacy space for biking and walking. So we had a few representatives from that who were just interested in getting to know us and wanting to introduce themselves. A lot of their focus has so far been in the city of Traverse City, but they are looking at building relationships with the townships, with the county. They've also met with the road commission, which was positive because one of the first things we said was that townships don't control their own roads. So any on-road thing that looks cool would have to involve the road commission at that point. So just to hear some ideas, and we shared with them our non-motorized plan that's part of our master plan, projects that are in the Parks and Rec master plan, things that have translated to the CIP, the fact that we have a CIP, so we can vet if the township's going to be involved in anything to include it through that process. And just to kind of see, what are some of the issues that could be open place for collaboration. We mentioned things that are in our ordinance, like when sidewalks and trails go in because of new developments. And just kind of hearing what some of those different ideas are, and see if there's potential avenues for collaboration in the future. And then the other thing, not meeting related, was there any questions about either of those two things? Okay. The other staff report thing I had was we moved this planning commission meeting because we attended the state planning conference last week in Kalamazoo. We can compare our notes later. So we just had that last week, but we can do like a summary of key information from sessions at a future study session. There was at least some of the ones I attended I thought were very relevant. John presented at one about changing retail, so it mentioned our 2 malls. Don't want to get into all the details right now, but I can't help but mention one of the sessions I went to was a law session, and they did it as they did it with sketches, like acting, rather than just a lecture, and it was a mock trial. They came up with a fake scenario, and planner was called in as the expert witness in this scenario. And I had to mention it because the planner was getting tripped up in this fake scenario because of several past statements where he kept changing his interpretation of a term not defined in the zoning ordinance, and that term was substantial construction. So if nothing else, it's good that we went and defined substantial construction. So we are well prepared for future cases.
Well, thank you guys for that
Good
report.
story.
Yeah.
Anything else?
That's it for now.
Okay, well, with that, we'll move on to unfinished business. Letter A on our agenda, PD 2025-120, Airport Great Gateway Master Plan Amendment Review, Public Input Follow-Up.
Yeah, so we actually just wrapped up the meeting here at 6:30, but we had roughly about 11 residents from the area showed up for the public input session for the Gateway area. And they had some very good comments and feedback regarding, some of the concepts are there in terms of developing a hotel and other airport-related businesses and uses. In terms of the development itself, I don't think there was anything necessarily concerning. Some were actually very supportive that said they would rather have a hotel there than an apartment building. The use itself, I don't think really became an issue. I didn't hear a lot of comments on that. A lot of it was related to the interface between the roadways and the use itself in terms of any development there, and knowing that South Airport Road is a busy road. There was some concern over what would be the impact on Town Line Road, knowing that that would probably be an important egress and ingress area to the development. So it was more about the traffic in that particular area, which I think would be an issue whether it was hotel or apartments. But that's, I think there's interest into seeing if Road Commission has any plans for improvement in that area or changes. I know there has been some discussions about South Airport Road, kind of more like the Costco down to 3 Mile. I don't know if they've had any discussions or plans for the intersection or anything of that. But heard that was where the lion's share of the comments were. Some talked about signage for the airport as an issue. Wayfinding, they're getting a lot of people that miss the drive at the intersection, go past it, go through it, so they're turning around in people's driveways and so forth. And it is a bit confusing through that area. The signage isn't always the best. I can imagine for visitors to the area, and that would certainly help. And that was kind of one of the other issues. Trying to think of any other comments. Were there any other thoughts that you had?
I think that was most of them. I think, Town Line, Airport are going to need work regardless of what the future land use or the zoning or the development is there. And not to create any additional conflicts. Like they talked about, does this have access to Town Line and as far west as you can get in this 12-acre area to not create conflicts with, it already backs up turning into the airport as is, and will likely continue to do that unless there are planned improvements along that road. So I think engaging the road commission to just what is their kind of near-term, medium-term, long-term plans for this area, knowing what the airport's plans are, that they want to add gates. How does road commission's plans jive with that? But yeah, I think that's going to be an issue regardless of the outcome of this. So it was good to hear that. Generally, though, I think there wasn't a lot. Well, they also didn't have the sketch of their proposed design. We didn't really get into the details of it, but I think people just with the concept of it didn't have as many issues with hotel. And yeah, I was a little surprised, but yeah, a lot of people were like, we'd prefer a hotel over apartments. Maybe that's just what they're seeing with apartments going across the street from them, but
yeah, I think there was one of the things they kind of wondered is what, we already have a lot of airports a lot of hotels in the area. Why do you need to have a hotel right here? And so we kind of talked about kind of the changing profile of the travelers that are going through the airport. In terms of, there are a lot of people that are flying out of Traverse City that live in the region and needing that place to take an early flight. They did also question a few times about the process. They kind of wanted to know, would they be informed going forward? I mentioned to them there's a process that we're in right now is the master plan process. So there would be a public hearing before this could be adopted. And just as we've done with the master plan, it would be a recommendation from the Planning Commission, and then the Township Board would have the authority to approve it. Also, that would just be the master plan, and then any subsequent zoning changes would require at least 2 public hearings through that process. So I think they were just kind of a little uncertain from the standpoint of, that this is very much at the very beginning stage. And so I think they were thinking that this was maybe moving along farther down, but just saying, nope, this is at the very beginning, and that the feedback here was going to be essential for the Planning Commission to consider as this goes forward. Kara, you were present. I don't know if you had any comments or.
I would just echo what you said. What I heard from most of the folks consistently was no objection to a hotel, but it was really more about traffic impacts in the area.
Did the road commission seem receptive to making some major changes there, even though they don't have plans right now?
We haven't really talked to the road commission about this, and I think that's one of the things we're going to be doing, was we're going to be meeting with the road commission manager and talking with them. I think that's just, if anything, it's just good for us to understand what their plans are for that part of the corridor, but specifically related to this, and to see what their feedback is.
We did mention traffic impact report or traffic impact studies are or can be required and are in our zoning ordinance that can result in improvements not only on the site itself, but sometimes that can result in improvements to the road itself. I know there's been, I don't know the last township one that had to actually make improvements on the road. I'm thinking was Meadow Valley? Did they do anything on Long Lake Road?
They did do some changes on Long Lake Road. I'm almost of the mindset of, if we could have some initial ideas on what those improvements would potentially be, would be really helpful for us. It doesn't, obviously we don't know the development or anything like that, but if we can, we recognize that access is going to be an issue here. We've talked about the importance of connecting out to Town Line. I think that should be there, but is there any more that might be needed to consider for that point when we actually do consider any developments, regardless of if it's a hotel or apartment building or whatever? What types of improvements would be needed to be there to kind of ensure that there's safe traffic patterns in that area? So,
John?
I know we've occasionally been talking about what ought to be the size or scope of a potential overlay district, and the initial one we're talking about is 12 acres, and that may be what it ought to be, but I know there's been at least some talk about, should we think about going further west? And I think it was our last meeting, we talked about maybe the northern portion of the industrial area. Did anything happen at the public input session that suggests one way or the other, anything about that topic?
No, it hasn't. I think we had some representation from the neighboring industrial property, but nothing was said there. That, is that the IL in there?
This is the IL. They were part of the, or at least these were on the mailing list, I believe.
Yes, we did. Actually, we did some over onto Welch Court as well, because we stretched it out. We did 300 feet, but we kind of just did it a little bit more to reach some of that area. But the IL district, as well as the IG, has certain design standards, just from the standpoint of parking lots aren't supposed to be out in front. They're supposed to be either the side or to the rear. There's some other site design standards that could come into play that would help to maybe improve some of the aesthetics of this. Now, it's all going to be dependent on if any of those change, that would prompt a site plan to be developed in that particular area. But that's one thought that we were having on that.
The thought being that the current ordinance would warrant any renovation or reconstruction of those IL properties would improve their appearance relative to the Gateway District. And you're suggesting that it's not necessary to consider expanding the master plan designation so that areas of the IL could be mixed, the airport gateway instead.
Yeah, I mean, if there was I look at that pattern there, there's a lot of small parcels. It's kind of packed in there. And if it was more of a, fewer parcels, and then the ability to, maybe apply some standards in there. But in terms of the master plan, applying additional standards on top of that, I don't know if we would necessarily see that change. I don't know if it would really matter. I feel fairly comfortable with our standards that are in the IG and IL, which kind of creates, I would say they kind of create like a business park image is what some of those standards are in our IG and IL. And I think applying those as properties are redeveloped or redone would probably be appropriate. I think that would be sufficient. And I can share some of those we can share some of those standards and maybe that would be the appropriate thing, is maybe for the planning commission to kind of make that call and see if that's sufficient enough, or should be extended and maybe apply some additional standards in there.
Yeah, I mean, my reason for, originally kind of bringing it up and continuing to hammer away at it is, my thought is, we go from commercial over near Garfield to an expansive open space for the airport, and then like light industrial, it's the IL, the IG that's right fronting on airport, and then we go to this airport gateway, and to me, it's like we should go from crossing the approach to, I mean, if an airport gateway is important, then it should all have the opportunity to move towards airport gateway. So that continues to be my thought, but maybe what you're talking about might, be responsive to that concern.
Well, I certainly think that if there are, we've talked about the need to have non-motorized pathway along here, and I think that's part of the infrastructure that could be developed along here that kind of ties it together. I think the way that building pattern there, it's, eliminating any of the front yard parking, that type of thing, which would be, replaced by green space or some form of landscaping. Certainly there are some there that really do need to be reconfigured. It's kind of open. There's driveways that are not properly defined. They're just kind of wide open. I think that's where those standards, I think, kick in fairly good for that. I think we could recognize maybe the district a little. We could stretch it along there, and just saying that gives us the basis, or the stronger basis, to ensure that those standards in the zoning ordinance are applied to that. That could be something of that. So it's not necessarily looking at anything different there, but other than that, the standards are, that, like you're mentioning, this is part of the gateway. We anticipate that these properties will change in time, and that they become in conformance with the master plan and the standards that we have for site plans and site.
Would the airport gateway not create value of opportunity for higher value of that, higher value use of that frontage? I mean, we can wait around for, any one of those businesses to decide that, to close or to whatever, and then for it to go up to redevelopment and be subject to those improved buffers and everything. Or, the opportunity to look at the airport gateway along that entire length maybe means that there's value created in the, we're not necessarily rezoning it, but somebody could come in and rezone it if we lay the groundwork for the master plan to say that it could be rezoned, such to create the value that somebody who's operating something that maybe isn't the highest best use for, again, it's like it's the entrance, so I don't want to pick on any one of those businesses, but they're all kind of light industrial, and, maybe it'd be more economically appropriate for them to be located someplace else and a higher value use as we're looking at a hotel, replacing one or two scruffy-looking homes, and not picking on any homes in particular, but the corner right there, which own and are willing to admit it's pretty scruffy looking. I just see it as an opportunity to increase that gateway that we're talking about, and kind of plant the seeds to encourage it for people to say, oh, I could make some money and move my whatever business someplace else, and then one or two lots could be replaced with something that's complementary to the airport entrance and the hotel that we're pursuing, that is being proposed.
Yeah, I think we could definitely do something like that. I think what it would allow for, so obviously IL is limited, it's actually kind of our heavy industrial type of district, so we have been talking about the concept of a, mixed use district, potentially zoning district applied in this particular area that would, limit things like no drive-throughs and that type of thing. So that what we could do is then have that area, and I'm thinking just the frontage lots, and just let the rear remain as is, but
Agreed.
you allow for that should they be wanting to rezone to an appropriate district like that. So, okay, yeah.
All right, just if we could continue to make it part of the conversation, and maybe if you brought us those changes that the properties would be subject to, and a description of how that is comparable to necessarily changing the master plan, then maybe I don't know how others feel. I know that's something I've been hammering on. Thank you for asking about it, John Racine.
And potentially, the way it could be written is almost like that. A couple meetings ago, we were talking about fuzzy edges. We have focused on one specific that kind of has hard boundaries, with two of them being the township's boundaries, one being a subdivision and where the industrial currently is. But knowing that frontage, because also some of these lots are at different dimensions. These set all kind of have a common back lot line, but this one's quite a bit deeper in this one, and those are closer to what this is. But just sort of like a fuzzy edges concept to it, knowing that it has an established development pattern, but if conditions change, it may warrant consideration of this, especially if it were also connected in the same way with both non-motorized, with cross connections, with access management, and those principles were carried on down that corridor.
Okay.
Any other thoughts? Molly?
Have you had discussion with Claire over there in East Bay about that lot that is right across town line? The apartment building, I think, is south of that first lot that's there.
That front right at the corner.
Right at the corner,
Yeah.
and trying to incorporate all of it so that it's an airport district. I'm not sure what they have planned for there. I think
Yeah,
it's
that was,
just a little
that, right,
commercial.
yeah, it's a little commercial. There's nothing on the site plan at itself, right now. We do have a copy of the site plan for that site. It's kind of that L shape, so that the apartment buildings are to the rear there that are currently under construction, but the site plan itself, it kind of has future use commercial for that corner, but doesn't have anything really kind of laid out or anything.
Nothing designed or drawn.
Nothing
yet.
designed at this point, but I think that was the intent for that, is to be some
Well,
type
maybe
of commercial.
share the things that we're thinking about for
Yes.
our mixed use, and I think we've all kind of felt like drive-throughs were not a good idea right there. See if we can get them on board with that as well. We don't want them putting a gas station there, so then if we can help it.
Agreed. We already have one on the opposite corner, so I think that's good.
It's enough, yeah.
Everybody good?
So we're taking these comments, and we kind of have this draft document, which we can go back and we're gonna tweak it. In terms, would you, just kind of looking at process, I think, got a lot of things. November 12th is gonna be a busy meeting. We don't have any regular or excuse me, we don't have any study sessions in November, December. Would something at the December meeting, or would you be okay with it? Maybe we at least provide it to you at November 12th, and then you can study it, so it's, and then maybe take some action at the December meeting. Would that kind of work out?
We just have one in December also.
Correct. Yeah, otherwise it's kicking it all the way to January.
Is December looking as busy as the November 12th meeting?
Yeah, I don't see a lot of, I mean, it's not that there's a lot of big things, but there's a lot of things, and some of these are gonna drop off, some of them are not.
What would we look to achieve if we had this, at the next time that this would become before the planning commission regarding the, airport gateway?
What would we present to you? So we would expand, the, kind of the boundaries of it to include that frontage along the industrial park area, and then we probably would add some additional language in there addressing that, how that would be applied, and it's gonna be looked at slightly different, but very similar. So it wouldn't be too much compared to what you have right now, but it will.
And then I'm sorry I interrupted you, go ahead.
No, go ahead, this time.
So then, would the action at that time be to schedule it for a public hearing then?
No, the public hearing would come at the end. The next step would be to send it to the township board. Then the township board would have to approve distribution of the language to the adjacent communities. There's a 40-day review period. Once that's concluded, then it would come for a public hearing. I believe we did the public hearings at the planning commission. We only need one public hearing, or was it maybe the town board?
We can double check that.
Yeah, so once the review period is over, then it comes back to the planning commission. Planning commission makes a recommendation, and then
Well-
to the town board.
My suggestion to the commission is that we all bring sleeping bags and plan on a long meeting in November to kind of bang out a bunch of stuff.
We come at 6.
Can we advance the meeting and start earlier? That's a good idea, Molly, I like that.
I'd be fine
Yeah,
starting the meeting
you can
earlier.
adjust your start time if you want.
Just for the one meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be, is everybody up for that?
I'm fine with it, yeah.
And if the next step were to go to the township board, if you did it in November, does the board meet?
25th.
They are going to meet the second time in
Scheduled for the.
they are scheduled to meet for a second time, but in December they just have the one, right?
It's scheduled for 2, but I think they typically do not meet. There is one scheduled for the 23rd, but typically they don't meet that week.
Okay.
Holiday.
Right.
So usually it'll probably be just the December 9th.
So for prudence, almost getting it on November so they can get to the board.
Yeah, and they just have to approve distribution of it to go out, to start the 40-day, 42-day public comment period, which doesn't mean that what goes out cannot be adjusted. That could be adjusted so that when they come back to go forward for the final approval, if there are any adjustments in there that could occur.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it's not final, it's just getting something out there, and then we get to deliberate further.
So the soonest we would have a public hearing would be in February or March.
Yeah,
That was
I
looking at
ran
it.
it.
42 days from November 25th would be sometime in January? Would it immediately follow the public, the 42-day comment period?
You gave us that once upon a time, I don't
No.
know.
Yeah,
That may
let
be,
me-
that may be,
Yeah, we have, okay, so it goes to, let's say it goes to the town board on November 25th. The 42-day period, review period starts on November 26th, the following day. It ends, ran the numbers, ends on January 7th. We'd have public hearing, approval, and recommendation by planning commission to township board at your regular meeting on January 4th, and then approval.
14th.
Or 14th, and then approval of the amendment by the Township Board at their January 27th meeting. So,
So it actually could go in January.
so yeah, if you do look at this on the 12th, that's the process that would follow.
Well, let's plan on doing that. It sounds like everybody's down to do so. And then maybe we can have one other item of business to just talk about changing that meeting after we get through our unfinished business today. Does that sound appropriate?
Okay.
By changing the meeting, I mean advancing it to start at 6 o'clock. So are we ready to move on to our next item of business? PD 2025-121, mixed-use neighborhood draft zoning ordinance amendment language review.
So this is the mixed-use neighborhood district language that we have planned. We've looked at a few times. This is the one that we're talking about maybe applying it initially here along Veterans Drive. Could be also applied some other areas within the township at some point in the future. This is a little bit different is the part on the first two pages remain exactly the same in terms of the purpose, the development principles that would apply to this, the listed of uses permitted by right, uses permitted by special condition, and uses permitted by special use permit, and then all the dimensional standards, those have all remained intact. What we did change is the site development requirements. We initially just listed them out because we wanted to kind of say that we would think that these would be applied to really create a district where allows for a mix of, let's say, commercial and office uses that are not high intensity, but then also incorporate some of the residential uses. So trying to look at, let's say, for instance, the Veterans Drive corridor, what are those elements? What are some features where you can still allow commercial, but it's not going to be detrimental to some of the residential that's being developed? So we wanted to insert those site development requirements instead of having everything right into this one district. We know that there are other areas within the ordinance that we wanted to address those. And so we took those standards out and applied them elsewhere in the ordinance. Some of them pertain directly to this district. Some of them are just some good design elements that we have kind of talked about in the past that we really wanted to include. For instance, and those are the areas that I highlighted in the following pages. For instance, on section 522, we talked about internal sidewalks. We want to make sure that we provide for, there's a requirement for internal sidewalks, but it doesn't really give a design aspect to them. We want to make sure that they're raised up, and that also that they're at least 5 feet wide. I think one of the things, for instance, when we ran into, as an example, is the Meyer, when they redid the Meyer, and there's supposed to be a walkway from, at least one walkway. We ended up actually having 2 connections, but there's the walkway that goes from the northerly entrance towards the gas station. When they put that in, or I don't know if it actually went in or not, maybe we caught that, but they just put that sidewalk in flush. And they came back and they adjusted it by placing bollards in there, which is really not the ideal kind of configuration. We kind of told them we wanted something more like with what they did out in Acme, where there is a sidewalk that goes down, it actually has landscaping on either side. But the point being is that there's curb there. So we don't want sidewalks that are flush, at least the sidewalk that's intended to allow for people to get from the bike path on the main road all the way to the front entrance of the store. So we wanted to raise that up. So that would be applied not just to this mixed-use neighborhood district, but would be applied to all developments. So that's a kind of a design standard. Also that we mentioned pedestrian street and driveway crossings shall be clearly marked. We talked about the Chick-fil-A, there's a crossing there when you come in, their drive, kind of between them and the car dealership to the south. Wanted to make sure that was properly marked and maintained, so people are aware that that is a pedestrian crossing there. One of the projects that we talked about was, actually I wish I would have seen this before. Section 530, green space areas generally, protection of vegetation, site design, plant. This is how it says plant areas must be protected from vehicular traffic through the use of concrete curbs, wheel stops, or other permanent barriers. Wheel stops are kind of they can get messy because they can get pushed around and so forth. And one project this kind of reminded me of is the Big B that went in over at the Cherryland Center, in that they have the drive that goes around there, but it has no curbing. And so that was something that ideally, if you look at like the 7 Brew that went in, it does have a nice curbing along there, keeps it more defined. I think this standard, quite honestly, could have been applied to that in order to keep the vegetation, the grass areas and so forth from being driven on. And then there's a similar requirement provided for in the parking areas. So it's kind of goes hand in hand. So all parking spaces, maneuvering lanes, and driveways shall have curb and gutter unless an acceptable alternate design is provided. Again, that would the importance of that curb and gutter is also for the conveyance of stormwater as well. And so it may be appropriate or not appropriate, but we thought that for the most part, we want to see that type of development have curb and gutter. We did mention in the previous drafts about signs. We wanted to ensure that the signs that go into this particular area are not as pronounced as in typical commercial areas. We want to make sure that they recognize that they're more limited here. We've looked at other places, for instance, like Silver Lake and Zimmerman, where Francisco's is at. They don't even have a freestanding sign there, but they got the wall signs there. The hardware store that's there does not have a freestanding pole sign. What it has is a monument sign. So that's a kind of a good example of we see some of that along this corridor where it's a little bit more, we don't have a lot of freestanding signs that are sticking up, but something that's a little bit more scaled towards a residential corridor. So we did provide there wall signs on the building, so they're not very high, sticking up above. So we did limit them to 15 feet. There are signs that are not permitted, and then that we do provide for some signs in terms of in case there are multi-tenant buildings and so forth. And then we would, the one use we do limit that has drive-throughs is financial institutions. So we applied the same standards that local commercial and commercial office has, which basically says you could have a financial institution, but it's limited to 2 drive-throughs, similar to what we have here on the corridor. We have a credit union and so forth, and I believe they're limited at 2 drive-throughs. So we thought that it would be better to put those standards elsewhere in the ordinance where it applies to other districts, or more appropriate, for instance, if we're talking about signs, Section 630 talks about signs for all the other districts. So this is just being presented to you. If you're comfortable with this moving forward, then we would schedule a public hearing. And it would have to be the December because of the 15 days.
What's the pleasure of the planning commission?
Can I ask some questions about the use chart as well? So I crosswalked table 3-4 with the full zoning, and I was just curious about the rationale of some of them that are chosen for either special condition or special use permit or are absent from the mixed-use neighborhood, but were present in either R3, RRA, CG, CH, or CP. So I don't know if it makes sense to kind of go through the ones I was curious about. And so I'll list them off, and there's just, I think 4 of them, and then let you go back. So one was bed and breakfast. One was commercial district housing development. One was home occupation. And one was neighborhood park. Or just a curiosity of than anything else, just what your thought process was.
Okay, I'm just writing those down. So, if I recall right, I think we were using as a basis for that, we kind of started with the office commercial district and then added in other uses from that. We thought that that was kind of the, potentially we thought like if this mixed-use neighborhood works fairly well, that we could see ultimately maybe the office commercial would go away. And that this would kind of replace that. So we were kind of basing a lot of it on that. We wanted to incorporate the residential uses, so that's the big difference here. It's taking essentially what was kind of an office commercial and incorporating that residential. So I think the interesting. So are you saying that they're missing from that? Or you were just?
No, and I didn't compare it to office commercial specifically, but like, for example, home occupation isn't allowed under the new mixed-use neighborhood. Is that because you think that then the zoning standards apply a little bit differently as far as what's allowable there? Or does that mean if somebody has a continued residential use, they would no longer be allowed to have a home occupation?
I think it's in conjunction with a single-family dwelling.
Yeah, I would think that was an oversight. I think home occupations would be appropriate in this
Okay.
area. At least that would be my thought.
I would support that too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think we look at some of these as, like, I'm thinking along this corridor, if somebody had a house, and the front of their house was a accountant office or something like that, would be appropriate. So I think that might be, and I would think a neighborhood park would be another one that would be an oversight. I think what we kind of feel like those are just ones to serve, those could be like a playground or something of a scale that would serve the immediate neighbors.
So you would add that one as a right by well as well? Park?
Yes.
Neighborhood, yep.
Neighborhood park. And then maybe, so we do have, we did include bed and breakfast on there.
But it's a special condition.
Special conditions, so those are ones that it's a use by right, but they also must meet those conditions. I know in the other district, we did it as, it's a special use permit.
I think is bed and breakfast allowed in R3 currently? It's ag for sure, because we've had
Yeah.
reviewed a couple of those. And I think because this one envisions allowing some, like, commercial, just either housing that would be appropriate, but perhaps bed and breakfast is not as appropriate for like a corridor like this.
I'd be okay with it as a special use permit. I was curious about the special
Okay.
conditions piece of it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fine,
Warrants some amount of review to it,
Yeah.
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 Mhm. Okay.
So bed and breakfast goes to special use permit.
Yep.
Everybody okay, everybody okay
Commercial
with that?
district
Commercial
housing was
district
the other one.
Commercial district housing has a special use permit requirement.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
It's fairly similar to the R3 apartments, the multifamily dwellings, but I think we were just thinking that while you could list it there as multifamily dwelling, I think we just, for whatever reason, thought maybe the standards that apply to that would be more appropriate.
The one under multifamily dwelling also links to section 615. There is, this is already in the zoning ordinance. It talks about like the housing in commercial districts outside of that commercial district housing. And it's really more looking at where there's like, you have more of like an upper floor housing and lower floor commercial or office, something. I don't know how many like specific examples we have of that. But I think that was more the intention of it, whereas commercial district housing was more like the ones that we've reviewed in the last couple of years, Marengo and 3066 North Garfield, which were more housing in commercial areas, which also could include commercial, although those two did not.
Yeah, I think what we thought that the multifamily dwelling by special condition, again, up above housing, and I think maybe on that, when we kind of went in that route, we were thinking of it more from how do we allow multifamily in a commercial district, so we kind of stuck with that. But the standards are, there might be a little bit more stringent standards in the commercial district housing than the actual multifamily. There are some provisions for, let's say, open space and so forth, but I think a lot of the commercial district housing, if I recall right, has just a hair bit more standards that have to be adhered to in the 725 section.
Since we're looking at this corridor as one of the first areas, it's along Veterans itself, there's not a ton, but in the neighborhood generally, there is a lot of multifamily with the one we always walk through, Harbor Drive. I forget the actual name of the development, but the one that's right next to this building, and then further down, there's I think even Country Club Drive is technically R3 because it has the more denser up at the front of that road. So in the neighborhood generally, there is more R3. I don't know if that was part of the thought process as well.
So we're okay with commercial district housing development, and it remains with a special use permit?
Yeah, and thank you for the clarification on that.
Oh, no
'cause I
worries.
know that was
Thank
a lot
you.
of questions.
No, this
Yeah.
is good to actually walk through. And even me just looking through this list as we were going, there are some other like, you should probably just double check these as we bring them back.
I skimmed through them again at your prompting, and I actually am curious about veterinary hospital. It is special condition under local commercial, office commercial, and it's a right under mixed-use neighborhood. But we, I think these tend to go part and parcel with one another. Kennel is not allowed in any of these. And pet shop, which it's different than a veterinary hospital. Well, no, because PetSmart has a veterinary hospital associated with it. So those are tied together now too. But so, which is to say that pet shop is a local commercial special condition, but not allowed in a mixed-use neighborhood. My thought is, I'm thinking veterinary hospital could be eliminated from a mixed-use neighborhood, because it just, to me, it generally entails pets spending the night or spending time. It's
But-
kennel-like, even though they're not in a kennel.
Yeah. Well, the one I was thinking, we have one right across the street, and so we see it a lot of times.
Oh,
So
really?
there's one literally like, right over there.
Yeah.
So that's why when I was looking at this corridor, thinking about it, and you see during the weekdays, people coming and going, and I'm not here on the weekends so much, but
Okay.
it didn't, thought it kind of, I think part of when we were looking at this and looking at using the CO district as a base, we were also like, what's happening along Veterans? Because there's quite a bit of mix here, right on the roadway. We have everything from single-family homes to Township Hall and everything in between. And so we're thinking, what goes along this corridor fits fairly well.
Sounds good then.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Molly?
Question, what's the definition here? We've got live-work units, and then we've got home occupation units. What's the difference between the two? Both of them you live in and you have a business in.
Yeah, the scale of them is a lot different.
She's gotta look them up, yeah.
Yeah, home occupation, I think, is limited on the amount of space that can be used for your actual occupation that you have in there. There's some specific standards to
Yeah,
that.
at least the way the zoning ordinance defines it. I also realize like the building codes also define live-work unit in a different way, but at least the way it's written in the zoning ordinance, live-work unit, a dwelling unit which is accessory use to a primary office, studio, or other similar commercial use, designed as an integral part of the building. And then home occupation, any non-intrusive activity of professional character carried out as an accessory use or gained by the owner or resident of the home. So I think it's,
One is primary,
one's primary, one's accessory. Home occupation, the residence is primary. Live work, at least in this definition, the office is primary.
flipped.
So it's flipped.
There are also special conditions that go with home occupations. For instance, the portion of the home devoted to the home occupation shall not exceed 25% of the floor area of 1 story of the dwelling. So, like Steve was saying, the occupation is accessory to the residence versus, in live work, I think we have it like in our industrial districts, and I think it's the only one that
Yeah,
allows for any type of residential is that, or if in, I think, some of the commercial
Yeah.
districts.
and there was something with like the way the building code defines it is also different than that. So perhaps that needs a name that is more clarifying than live work unit, if there's already a building code definition for something that's a live work unit, but,
but you can't work on your car in the garage there and live there, right, on somebody else's car.
In a home occupation?
that could be a home occupation,
No,
or would that not be it? If it's within your garage, could that be defined that way?
It's 1 story of the dwelling, so I don't know if, would the garage be considered part of the dwelling? I'm just referencing the requirements in 612.
That's a good question.
But didn't it say something about the type of business and that, when you read that?
Oh, the definition?
Yes, the,
Any non-intrusive activity.
I think that would burn an auto mechanic right there, but, it's
Non-intrusive?
not- yeah.
How intrusive is non-intrusive?
There are other, in addition to what I mentioned about the 25% of the total floor area of 1 story of the dwelling, there's also home occupations shall not be permitted in an accessory structure. No outdoor activities shall be carried on in connection with the use.
You would have them outside.
You may be able to have the equivalent of 1 full-time employee may be permitted to assist the owner occupant. The essential character of a lot or structure in terms of use or appearance will not be changed to the slightest degree by the establishment of a home occupation or its activities. Noise, glare, fumes, odors, or electrical interference are prohibited. Not more than 1 client, patron, or patient is permitted at any time. And deliveries and pickups by tractor trailers are prohibited, and 1 wall sign up to 3 square feet identifying the home occupation may be permitted. So,
But
those
no
are-
outdoor activity would be the biggest one on that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, yeah, okay, thanks.
Anything else anybody wants to discuss?
Also, just looking at this list, I noted a couple other things that are in R1 are, there with special conditions, it's private swimming pool and waterfront stairway and landing. I don't know if they would really apply, or the waterfront, especially on veterans. I think actually even long-term, these are in here because there's conditions. It's almost like if long-term, if there's any reorganization of the zoning ordinance, there should be a section of like things accessory to single-family dwellings. Like, these are not standalone uses. Like, these almost need to not be in the use chart, but if they are already in one, they seem to carry over. If it's accessory to a single family, and you would allow single family in this district, everything that's accessory to it would just carry over. But long-term, that almost needs to be its own thing in section, like Article 6.
Well, are we feeling like this is ready to go for a public hearing? John?
I've just got one question, and I'm not necessarily suggesting you need to change your language, but I just have a question about it. On page 4 of the report, under section 522, you talked about the concrete sidewalks, and you've got a dimension for the width specified, the 5 feet, and you want them constructed of what you called raised concrete. And I don't know if that's a term of art, or what's the difference between raised concrete and some other kind of concrete? Do you need to get specific, or should we be specific, or is it good enough as it is?
That's a good one. I think that needs to be adjusted.
I don't know.
I think the intent is to have it with curb and or gutter. Yeah, let me take a,
Maybe we should just say that, needs to be with curb and gutter.
Curb and gutter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you might want to add an inch, like 4 inches or something like that, because if somebody could
Right.
raise it an inch and
Yeah.
tell you that that's good enough.
Curb and gutter, like, it's really a raised
Almost.
barrier between the parking lot and or vehicular traffic and pedestrian traffic.
I can talk with our engineer, because I think it should be appropriate to probably identify, if we're identifying the width of the walkways. It's also referenced earlier in that 522A, that talks about the difference between 5-foot width for a sidewalk, 6-foot wide in certain areas, and then a 10-foot, like a bike path that's like an asphalt. But I'll get with the township engineer and maybe can provide us with a better description of that.
I think it's a good idea to put that dimension, because you could be 1 inch, you could be
Right.
3 inches, or.
Is there a way we can advance this, as the draft motion suggests, so that we get a public hearing scheduled in December? But the literal language of what we're scheduling for a public hearing, it may get tweaked depending on
Yeah.
what language you come in to add to the raised
Could
concrete,
be-
if you're gonna change it, but I hate to cause this to cause a
Agreed.
delay.
Could the motion potentially be revised to read zoning ordinance text amendment as amended, meaning how we amended it tonight, and how it will be amended with regard to defining what raised means with regard to concrete curb or concrete sidewalk?
Yeah, I think that'd be appropriate. So it would motion that the proposed draft zoning ordinance text as amended.
Well, it is a text amendment, and we
Right.
are amending the text amendment tonight.
Yeah,
Or-
yeah,
Or as
Amendment
edited?
discussed tonight.
Yeah, as discussed. All right, that'd be, because really, the language is not final.
Right. We
Even
don't have
until-
yeah, we
Public hearing.
could, so the reason it's going out to December 9th is because we have the 15-day.
Right.
So that's why it's being pushed
Right.
out so far. But we could certainly bring it back to you.
I was gonna say.
I don't think we need to have it brought back to us. We just need you to
We'll see it in
define
December.
curb, and
Yeah.
we'll have a
Per
public hearing.
staff adjustment.
Yeah, make some adjustments, and,
Okay.
John?
I'll make the motion, if that's all right then.
Yes, please.
I'll make the motion that the draft zoning ordinance text amendment is attached to Planning Department Report 2025-121, as amended per our discussion of this evening, be scheduled for a public hearing for the December 9th, 2025 Planning Commission regular meeting.
Support?
All right, I have a motion by Racine, support by Robertson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, the same. Motion passes. And we will move on to our next item of business, which
That
is
covers next two, yeah.
the discussion of the food trucks.
Steve's got this.
All right,
There we are. It's 2025-122 food truck discussion follow-up.
all right. Thank you. This is mostly a follow-up to several questions raised by the Planning Commission at the last study session. We did reach out to staff at City of Traverse City, planning staff at City of Traverse City and East Bay Charter Township. Also the East Bay Township Assessor, Grand Traverse County Parks, and our own Township Assessor. And followed up on several questions that were raised by Planning Commission. Was do other communities, in this case Traverse City and East Bay, restrict the location of food trucks or whether they can be a primary accessory use? East Bay has it where it's permitted by right, where it's not a primarily single family. And they also have an urban growth plan, so they have a specific geographic area and allow anywhere that's zoned commercial or industrial. They also have what they term mobile food court, something more like a Little Fleet, which is something allowed in commercial or industrial as well. The city has it a little bit differently. It's not done through zoning, it's more just through the police power ordinance, where it's mobile vendors on public lands or public parking. On private property, there are not as many regulations, but they're treated as a restaurant use, so they just go straight to is a type of restaurant. We asked them, since there was some concern, has the next two questions kind of linked together. Commissioners or board members, were there any concerns about food trucks potentially having negative impacts on brick and mortar? And I know one of the concerns brought up at Planning Commission was brick and mortar would be assessed for property tax. How would you do that for something that's mobile? For East Bay, they provided research background on benefits of using food trucks as a business incubator, and this is the example of like lower barrier to entry for those businesses, some of whom have later become brick and mortar. The one that comes to mind for me is Glendale, was in Little Fleet for a while and then went up to Elmwood Township. And then actually how they would be assessed is that there's assessing department would not actually tax it on its own, but there is would be treated as like a building on leased land. The example I also even got today was like if you're leasing land for a billboard or cell tower, there's like either a leased area or presumably there's rent being paid or some kind of payment being made back to the property owner. And depending how a food truck, either zoning or police power ordinance would be set up, there would be a tie back to a existing business or some kind of primary use, that you wouldn't just have a food truck on a standalone parcel. Similar how we don't have, most billboards are not on standalone parcels. I almost said all of them. I don't think all of them are, but tying that to that, and if there's rent being paid back or some kind of payment made back, that would be captured the same way those are. Rather than like a personal property tax or a like assessment specifically on the food truck itself. There are also the state licenses, and there could be a local license that could have a fee attached to it as well, associated with reviewing and monitoring, inspecting them. It was a really good in-depth example from East Bay. East Bay actually has specifically a $60 for a food truck, a one-time land use permit, and there's also a site plan review for if there was going to be a food court. And then specifically to the parks, East Bay commented they do have food trucks as part of the East Bay Farmers Market. or some of those is part of a larger special event permit. So people wanting to do events at the parks, if they were tied to an event, could be a consideration. And then asking John Chase, I'm sure Kara could also chime in. They've allowed food trucks in parks through a permitting system. They haven't seen a lot, but he said they'd consider their involvement to be a good addition. So this is, pretty much from reaching out to those, this is what we received back as feedback. It was a lot more than I was actually expecting, so I was glad to get a little bit better understanding. As of now, this is just where we were answering those questions. As you saw in our for our November meeting, we already have a lot, so this would probably come back in December at the earliest if we were going to prepare anything for review at that point. But mostly just wanted to bring these back and see if there are any other further questions or things we should be looking at.
Thoughts from the planning commission? Ready to just have staff draft something up for us to review at a later meeting?
Good plan.
Everybody in agreement?
Yeah, I would assume staff would probably confer with the township attorney. I notice in your recommended action that potential zoning ordinance and/or police power, so if somebody's
Yeah.
got to think that through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I, representing the Parks Commission, I'd love to see some thoughts about how this would be applied in the parks and for it to go to the Parks Commission for some input.
Mm-hmm. Parks, I believe, meets before Planning Commission in December, so
Correct.
at least having an initial conversation, knowing that we've been kicking this around and hearing what they have to say, that should be on the agenda for that meeting.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think we definitely want to see legal review, because I think we were envisioning kind of a combination. So zoning allows for the use to be considered an accessory, but the police power ordinance allows us to really monitor it and with an annual license. So if there are any issues that can be addressed through the licensing, zoning does not work well for those types of activities where if you need to make quick responses. So that's kind of what we were thinking, is kind of combination of both.
Mm-hmm.
Molly?
Yeah, so my question is on taxing of them, but I guess the planning commission won't really deal with that anyway. That'll be something assessing
Right.
will decide and how they want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And see them moving around and, who do you assess?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
What about having some kind of a, like a brainstorming like you did tonight for that airport deal with the brick and mortar people in town, or, our township, to see what their thoughts would be?
We could do that.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to really gauge, to hear, we could just kind of do an open house on the subject and see who shows up. I think what helps is we could probably draft some language first. That way people can come back and, because I think we envision this to be that we don't see food trucks going around anywhere, like in the parking lot of the mall or something. We see it being somehow related to a brick and mortar operation of some sort. But I think what we could do is draft the language, then kind of maybe just hold, that's what a public hearing does, but public hearing is more when you're actually in that formal process. I think what we'd just be doing is getting input, general feedback. Hey, this is raw ideas that we have here. What do you think? Probably wouldn't be a bad idea. And then that way we can come back and then fine tune it into something that is more detailed to what maybe would go forward.
Yeah. Would Travis Connect maybe have contacts in the industry, or somehow
Yeah.
gathering like a list of people?
I think if we kind of put it out there, I think we could probably get a good,
Yeah,
yeah.
we could see, how to get the word out the
Molly?
best.
We should know what places we might be able to do it. I can see the beer place on Cass and Terra Firma and the parks but maybe we don't want the mall parking lot, or maybe so that they know what we're talking about here.
Yeah,
How many places could they really do
Mm-hmm.
it?
What districts?
that's where the zoning would
Yeah.
kick it. That zoning is gonna dictate the location. So, as an accessory to these types of businesses or whatever. And And then the police power would be more of the operation and the activity that occurs there. But that's where, yeah, that's going to be the critical one for place location, where we would permit these.
We're good? All right, thanks, everybody. All right, that's the rest of our unfinished business regarding new business, PD 2025-123, Blair Township Master Plan Update Review.
So Blair Township is updating their master plan. We received a notice or a letter dated September 10th from Networks Northwest on behalf of Blair Township, which indicated the start of their 63-day review for a full master plan update at 63 days. An amendment is 42, which is why the one we discussed for ourselves earlier is 42 days, but this one's 63-day review period. And then we attached some excerpts. We provided a link to the full plan. It was probably easier to just go to Blair Township's website and search master plan than try to type in that monstrosity of a link. But staff did make a few comments just on things that we tried to focus on areas along the border, which would be Silver Lake area, Rennie School Road is the border, and then Hoke and Potter, east of the river. So noting some of the things in Blair's, they did have a lot more residential and at least a little bit higher residential on some of their border areas. Especially like in the southeast where we have ag and rural residential. And we kind of noted that extensive residential development, especially along that southeast part, Hoke and Potter, it may create pressure for development on the Garfield side. Also, noting the density of residential they had, didn't seem to acknowledge the it's called Thrive, but that development on Garfield, just south of Potter. There's a small bit of Garfield Road that is in Blair Township. It's going on an angle. Those duplexes are in Blair before you enter into, you go back into East Bay Township. But yeah, the master plan didn't actually acknowledge any higher density residential. So I'm more just curious to ask them how that development came about and how they envision that. Since it didn't seem to be reflected on their own master plan.
I think they've got 22 units on 6 acres.
Yeah,
No water and sewer.
right. Perhaps it was done as like a cluster development, but I don't really know. It was just more information needed, or acknowledgement needed.
It looks odd. You drive down the road.
Yeah. They also did at least, they also did something really interesting to talk about their build out based on, they tied it to specifically water availability. And also noted specific areas along Rennie School Road and then potentially expanding a water service area along West Silver Lake Road. I believe they have their own water system, so they are not part of Garfield's system. They're not part of a shared system at all, to the best of my knowledge. I don't know if that would ever change in the future, considering we just extended water to Long Lake, but I think they have their own system. So. Page 33, they showed where they have their development opportunities. They have a commercial manufacturing zoning, sort of a combination of commercial and industrial, especially in that like Rennie School Road area, the Chums Village. We acknowledge that we are looking at a rezoning in that area. Right now, it's all commercial and some multifamily on our side. On that Olson property, we're acknowledging that industrial might be part of that, or at least reviewing an application for it. And the connections with like Stadium Drive. They did also, as part of their public input, they had their like top 10 areas of desired focus. They did, sort of by reference, but in their Parks and Rec plan, they did talk about non-motorized trails and shared pathways. Our own non-motorized plans did have a connection, actually anticipating it along Stadium Drive and US 31, also along the railroad corridor. If there are other opportunities that arise in the future, it's something that we can evaluate and certainly partner with, perhaps through a Safe Streets Alliance. And then they had their future land use map, and similar comments to above, that there was that residential development that might create some pressures on Garfield, and also to acknowledge that higher density residential that's there. So I think there are some questions. There are some of the maps included in here. This is the zoning. You'll recognize our zoning. This is the Olson property, that strip of, excuse me, strip of R3, agricultural, the industrial along Rennie School Road, and then ag on the east of the river. So this is the zoning, their analysis of it, the analysis of the water infrastructure, their commercial manufacturing, public input, and then their future land use map. So if there are any comments, this would be good to, if there's anything we want to provide comments or ask questions of Blair, this is our opportunity to respond to their request for input on their master plan update.
Planning Commission have any thoughts? John?
I just was a little unclear on the chart you've got in the middle of page 2 of the report with the near Silver Lake and East Silver Lake roads. You showed that Blair has this as high-density residential, and we've got it as low. How can you tell from the Blair? It just looks like yellow to me, like everything else that they've got in yellow. How do we know
Right.
that's high-density resencial, and what does that mean in Blair Township?
Right, it's a good question. I think for them, some of them. What are the new residential development that's going in right, like off of Rennie School, a little west of Silver Lake, or west of Stadium?
Yeah, there is multifamily just west of
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stadium.
So I don't know if they are intending that, or is that just what's right here? I don't know if that's in their commercial manufacturing, or if this is the start of that over here. I'm wondering though if high density meant more like, because what they have is low density is more in like the rural and ag. Also, again, it includes a big subdivision though. But most of this is like lower density, more like the ag or rural residential. So maybe that's what they called low, and then the higher is just higher density than that. It would be a good question for them, because they had no other residential beyond, or I guess there was agricultural residential. It's also hard to distinguish between ag residential and low density residential based on the colors that they were using.
True.
But they only have ag, low, and high, so they did not have a medium density.
Yeah, they're not really identifying densities in
Yeah,
there.
what does that
Right.
mean?
Yeah, ours always had. Yeah, ours had the
Yeah, we're like 1 to 3.
1 to 3 acres. Yeah, they didn't have
Ours
anything
is
like
fine,
that.
but I don't
Yeah.
know what theirs means.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So are they switching all that stuff in their northwest corner around Silver Lake? All that looks like that bright yellow, which all that would be high density now. This is on their
Yeah.
future land use map.
Mm-hmm.
So all that turned into high density, and it was in the past low density? Is that the way I'm taking it?
I was wondering that too.
Yeah.
That's all developed
It's
as
all-
low density.
Well, there is a
Apparently,
great
isn't it?
big development that just got started this week on Rennie School Road.
Yeah, that one, but everything
No, a
else around
brand
the
new one
lake
that just
is-
got started
Yeah,
at the East Silver Lake Road end. But that says, right here, it shows that to be bright yellow, so that would be high density.
Mm-hmm.
But on the west side of Silver Lake, over in there where there's not much right now, that's all bright yellow.
Wonder if I clipped a little too much off of the.
But also, that stuff on the west side of Silver Lake is part of their future water district too. If you look at that one map that shows it blue, and so they're gonna run their water mains all the way up through there, possibly.
Would there be time for you to maybe ask them what they really are planning in that area, or what their intention is? And if it sort of jives with what we're doing, fine, and if it doesn't, then maybe we do have a comment to make about that.
I was wondering if there was, if I inadvertently clipped too much. Here we go. Future land use districts. I opened up the full master plan. Residential high density, single and multifamily housing with access to municipal sewer and water. So they, I think, went off of their utility availability. Yeah, apartments, condos, townhouses. Yeah, this is what they're envisioning as allowing potentially high density in those areas.
Does it say what high density is to them? Because they have high density also out, for example, that little 6.5 acre piece. off
Could you go to their
Garfield.
zoning map and see what the zoning allows in Blair for high density?
And did they already have that?
Yeah, they should have a zoning plan, right?
Though that might actually be at the end.
Yeah.
Creating new zoning district, residential high density with boundaries aligned with the future land use map high density.
This is their zoning plan?
This is recommended zoning standards amendments.
Excellent.
Okay.
Do they have a zoning plan?
Unless they're calling that a zoning plan. Oh, yeah, the zoning plan. Oh, this was the end of the zoning
Yeah,
plan.
right.
Okay, yeah, never mind. Sorry.
Fairly.
Yeah, so they link them, all right, as is needed, the, linking them to.
R1
yeah.
district.
Okay, so they also go backwards where the highest density is R1,
Yeah.
then the R2, yes.
It's confusing.
Perhaps that could be a comment, like, please, R1 is single,
Yeah, right,
R2
you're
is
wrong.
medium, yeah.
That'll
Get
go
with the
for video.
program here. Yeah. Bulk requirements. So the high density is max gross density in units per acre, not applicable.
Oh,
As
anything they
many as
want.
you can fit.
Yep,
Low
you got
density,
Water, sewer.
1 unit per acre. So what they call low is 1 unit per acre. And I think they just kind of go anything more than 1 unit per acre, they have no further restriction than that.
And Molly, to your question about the Thrive units, I saw when you were scrolling the light yellow, it did say small-scale multifamily housing development, so I guess that's how, by special use permit.
What do you mean by
So,
small
right
scale?
there.
Okay.
uh,
Small scale multifamily housing
Special use.
as a special use even in low density.
So,
That's how that
what do you mean
happened.
by,
That might be
Small
how that
scale.
thrive.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm sure that's what it is.
all right.
if you look at our concerns really along Potter and Hoke and Rennie School up along there, and if they are low density, 1 house per acre, that's kind of matches up in that ag area that we have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if they follow the same kind of rules that we have, but not, I don't know whether they do. And that's where we connect with them, so, I mean, they can
Mhm.
do whatever they want on the rest of it, correct? Are we thinking we want
Um,
to comment on, we don't want to be nosing into their business.
I mean,
Well,
we're
I think
offered to
it's-
comment. I don't think we have, any jurisdictional oversight
Yeah,
over their
I mean,
decisions.
I think it's important to
Yeah.
voice
Mhm.
concerns or thoughts or ideas. I mean, the one thing that we realize too is that, there's the land use compatibility, but there's also then the impact on the road system. And granted, we're not responsible for the road system, but I know the township is interested in supporting road commission projects, and I know, for instance, like Roosh Road, the connection between there going up to Garfield is in poor condition, and I'm thinking, well, if I'm looking to, yes, there's Traditions is located on Roosh Road, so that's a contributor, but then I'm also looking farther south, and I see a lot of residential down there that's
South
contributing
Creek,
to that.
yeah.
So I think, and we've seen this also over on Long Lake, on Gray Road, where, you know, maybe on our side, we're kind of thinking more, well, you know, low density residential, but then on the west side of Gray Road, you know, Long Lake's like, we're gonna place some of our higher density stuff over there. So just trying to figure out a more rationale for how these are compatible, because from what they're proposing in some cases is probably a little bit more extreme than what we got going.
There's another subdivision that's not on here. That's at the L of Roosh Road,
Wildflower
and it's, yeah,
Meadows or,
that, and I believe that's an 80,
Oh, that brand new one at that other
brand
factory
new
farm?
one. It,
Right.
it doesn't really connect into South Creek, but it has a crash gate there.
Oh, so that's too new for this map, it looks like. Well, that's
Well,
a
this
future
is
map,
their
though.
future
Yeah, I know,
land
so
use,
that's-
so
Alright, I should acknowledge.
I don't know of other ones.
And is South Creek, are they 1 acre lots or?
Them
they're
are
less-
big lo-
They are
yeah,
big lots,
yeah.
okay,
But they're not all 1 acre lots.
okay.
I mean, it's not a restriction. I don't believe it was a restriction in
Okay.
that plat.
I think there's only one entryway, right?
Well, I think
One
it's,
entryway,
It's amazing.
yeah, 300 and some units in
Yeah.
there.
so that, you just talked about that crash, that's gonna just be a crash gate
Crash
onto that new
gate
one?
between South Creek and
And that
this
new
Wildflower, or whatever the name of it is there. And those are good sized lots, 2 in there.
So that's the deal with all these townships, they wanna put their property, their dense property on the Traverse City side of their township. And that's, like Long Lake and Blair both are doing that, and then we have our less dense right next across the road.
As far away from the city as you can get in our township, but that butts right up against it, yep.
It's kind of the same way that with Green Lake Township and with East Bay, those townships also are more rural looking on their boundary with Blair than Blair's looking on their side of the boundary with them, so. All their neighbors are looking at more ag and rural residential stuff along the borders, where they're looking at
Yeah.
residential.
I think, yeah, low density, my comment might be like, choose different colors for low density and ag residential. This is too difficult to read on this map, and this is me being a GIS nerd. I don't think that there is water sewer on this side. On this side, this is where there could be more of the both development pressure, but also tie into potentially, I don't know, on the sewer side. Do they have, is any of Blair's connected to the regional sewer, like that ends up at the,
It all is.
it
Yeah.
all does, all right, so the sewer's already
Comes
connected.
through the
to-
township down
Okay.
US 31.
So if there's any future connections or expansions, that's all part of that same system.
And that's what my worry is, that
Yeah.
they're gonna use up all that sewer line coming to Traverse City, and then our vacant land that we have sitting out there that we wanna sell someday, we're not gonna be able to do it, cause we ain't gonna have any sewer line.
Right, well, does there need to be like main upgrades at some point in the future along this stretch? If they're anticipating this much in this corridor or in this little corner of Blair.
So thinking we had a substantial amount of discussion, is there, we feeling like just kind of direct staff to make some comments back to Blair Township? Or do we want staff to bring something back to us to discuss further?
Depending on the 63 days, we might need to provide that sooner than later. When did we get it? The 10th?
Yeah, so what's 63 days get us to?
Our next meeting would be the 12th. It'd be right about at that time.
Get something out the next day with the 13th, with that. Yeah.
Does it do any good?
I mean, I think
Well, you
we can
received it on-
summarize,
You received it on September 10th, not October
or it was
10th.
dated September 10th, sorry, yeah.
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 I think it's worth to make comments, just for the record.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just seeking
Yeah.
if the commission thought that we needed to talk about it any further, if we'd given you enough thoughts to go ahead and make some comments back, and we're good to go.
That's usually the way we do
Yeah.
it.
That's what I'm hearing. Heads nodding. You guys got
I
some
feel
comments?
confident that we can
Yep.
summarize the discussion.
Very good.
All right, sounds good.
If not, we can tell them to watch the tape, so.
All right, so next item is public comment, and oh, look at that, our public's headed for the door.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. All right, having no public to make any comment, we have other business. And actually, I have two items. We talked about, number one, starting the meeting earlier on November 12th. So does anybody want to make a motion to start that meeting earlier on November 12th?
I'll make them,
Motion?
yeah, I think we do.
Yeah? Okay.
I'll make the motion that we move the November
Is it 12th? Is that the correct date?
Correct.
It is the
12th
12th,
meeting,
yes.
change it from 7 o'clock to 6 o'clock.
Support.
A motion by Robertson, support by Klein. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed, same. Motion passes. And the second item of other business that occurred to me through the course of this meeting is, do you guys have readily available the list of commissioners whose term expires this year?
Oh, I believe it is
Pat
Pat
and
and
Kara.
Kara.
Okay. and-
And I think they've been contacted by the,
Did Karen contact you?
contact you.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
Did
Very
you
good.
fill out your app? They're making those.
Not yet, no.
Get your app filled out.
Please do. I'd like to see you continue to serve. So, okay, that was the only other thing I had. Items for next agenda. Grand Traverse Bay YMCA, Smith Brothers rezoning, Olson's property rezoning. So wait, that's public hearing, finding of fact, and then minor amendment follow-up for the Lake Point PUD, follow-up for Macy's redevelopment signs, and High Tup's follow-up regarding the planned shopping center site plan review, and then finally 931 dual road conditional rezoning request introduction.
That was the one that was a conceptual review a couple months ago.
Oh,
They
yeah.
brought
They're
back
looking
and,
to
yep.
create 2 apartments.
Okay.
So on that, I brought up something to staff tonight about that Olson property, about possibly wanting a future cross connection, and they're gonna look into it, which they would bring to us.
Okay.
Yeah, the Olson one, I think, just so you know, I think there's a lot of, it's a big undertaking of that rezoning. A lot of it's based on that proposed development plan, so we're still continuing to have some conversations. We want to assure that, I mean, you can't necessarily place conditions on the rezoning, but we want to make sure that the proposed development plan, that the township engineer is comfortable with that, because there's significant amount of infrastructure that's going to be required to go in. It's obviously going to be done through a staged process, so we're trying to get that firmed up a little bit. That's information is critical to the findings of fact, because that it really kind of needs to be in place to justify the rezoning. So it's, I'm just want to let you know that we are continuing to work on that, and it's going to be a fairly detailed findings.
Okay. Well, are we ready to adjourn?
I think I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
We're adjourned.